Well, welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. I've decided to go with the title of Curriculum Through Literacy, and I know you're probably asking yourselves what this is all about. Basically, we're talking about the 2012 being the National Year of Reading here in Australia, and I've been asked by our principal to present to you all my thoughts on how we can integrate this amongst our curriculum and much more why we should. So basically our school views literacy and reading as a real strong part of child development. So we see this as a real great opportunity to promote this area within our school. As we're an all-girls school, there are further opportunities to boost both individual abilities and thus aid in the development of community and national schemes, such as possible United Nations campaigns, but I'll come to this a little bit later. So basically, we'll start off with what are we talking about when we're talking about this National Year of Reading? So, what is it? Well, the National Year of Reading 2012, it's a campaign which was developed by the Australian state governments, and it's about children learning to read, and keen readers, so people who are already involved with reading, finding new sources of inspiration. Okay, and we're sort of looking at moving away from the traditional approach of actually reading, but also bringing the traditional approach back into the system as well. And most of all, it's about Australians becoming a nation of readers. Okay, so really trying to promote ourselves as being much more literate. Now, alarmingly, half our population can't read without any fluency. And this is really alarming. So it's a shameful and worrying statistic. We've identified 3 goals which will help us turn Australia into a nation of readers and encourage a reading culture in every home. So for all Australians to understand the benefits of reading as a life skill and a catalyst for just general well-being, to promote reading culture in every home, to establish an inspirational goal for families of parents and caregivers, and just trying to share books with their children and bring it back into their lives. This is a point where I think as a school we can help develop skills of reading a lot and ultimately produce a community of more powerfully literate members. Now the area that I'm involved in is actually PE, and PE is arguably mostly practical, which suggests that it could certainly develop its ability to boost literacy, but once again this comes back to how we structure this into our curriculum. So in actual fact, there are so many possibilities to promote reading literacy within a class of PE. My idea is that by developing reading within other areas, we're continuously promoting these skills of literacy and embodying the skills other than simply in an English class. And this allows learning to somewhat fast track and become a cultural exercise. So obviously, as I said, PE, my main area. So this actually goes hand in hand with developing powerfully literate students, which is what we want our girls to be. So similarly, a precursor of having greater skills and understanding is that self-esteem in these areas is increased, and the desire to want to help others in developing countries have similar opportunities. Actually, it starts becoming apparent. Okay, so there's a campaign the United Nations actually runs called the Girl Up campaign, and it helps teens empower peers around the globe. Now, the Girl Up campaign, as I said, it's a campaign of the United Nations, and it really gives girls the opportunity to channel their energy and compassion to raise awareness and funds for programs of the UN that help some of the world's hardest to reach adolescent girls. So what this all comes back to is becoming powerfully literate as well, alright? So one of my main things that we're going to be talking about is how can we become powerfully literate. I really want you to start considering what this means to you. So, what is it? And when we see this word literate, I think a lot of us start thinking of English and straight away, and yeah, it's definitely got its roots coming from English. But to be powerfully literate means more than simply reading and writing effectively. Literacy involves the integration of speaking, listening, and critical thinking with reading and writing. In order to become an effective reader within society, there are actually 4 reading practices that need to be developed. And these are making meaning with text, working with purposes of text, cracking the codes within the text, and critically analysing the text, okay? These actually fall under the model known as the sociocultural model of reading. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But it's a really good model to think about. Cultural, just trying to spell that. Okay, so sociocultural model. Now, essentially, this means having a reader who is not simply an observer, but a participant in deciphering text, building a point of view and furthering their ability in language, all right? So they're not just reading the words, so to speak. Making meaning of a text is actually an active and reflective, okay? So we want our girls to be text participants. This is one who makes sense of text and ask questions like, what's the text actually trying to say to me? What are the possible meanings of this text? Do I already know about this topic? Or, you know, it's something that, you know, that they remember in their mind and they have a personal connection with. So readers activate their text participant practices, and that's what we're talking about with the sociocultural model, when they focus on the text, on the way the text is constructed, and to make a meaning of how it relates to their prior knowledge, okay? Text analyst practices are activated when they talk about an opinion and point of view in a text and consider what the text believes or what the writer's trying to say, the writer's point of view. So when we pick up the paper and we're in the sporting section, and we can clearly see that the person who's writing the article is a supporter of one of the 2 teams purely by the way that they're writing. And this happens through analysing the text and picking up on that with these skills. So when readers use a text in social situations to achieve social purposes or interact with others in the classroom, they begin to activate these text using practices even more. So where does this lead us, all right? We have to give them, which is our students, with the opportunity to do so. So provide students with opportunity. All right, it's got to be one of the key things. We need to provide them with the opportunity to be powerfully literate within our curriculum and lessons. An example may be giving the students a real life situation like role plays, for instance, something that I'm really big on, particularly with my involvement with PE. So I might say to them, pretend you're a coach of a team down at half time, it's the grand final, and whatever sport we're thinking about, I want them to put together a motivating speech and deliver it to the class. And basically, within that speech, they've got to address the principles of how the team's going to attack, how the team's going to defend, according to the principles of play. I'll put that up there because it's one of my little favourites. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the want or desire for someone to want to learn something. So usually this happens. For this to happen, there needs to be something that invokes the curiosity of the person doing it. Okay, so that's kind of what we need to do when we're talking about contemporary models of reading. Okay, so as we have just established, providing students with a stimulant such as a role play helps exercise their brain in an environment that promotes the use of text practices, and this has got to be a great start. Now, not just doing it within school is one of the other things I want to be talking about, but actually taking this idea of being powerfully literate and even the model of the 2012 year of reading into the actual culture of their lives. So we're talking about family and just the general community. Alright, so it becomes something that's practiced, not just at school. Going back to, it brings us now into the idea of contemporary models of reading, okay? Now, my role plays definitely something that I would consider a contemporary model of reading. Okay, so we're looking at something that it's a bit more new, not so the mundane, just reading. Here's a book, go sit down and read. So we're looking at things that are going to grab the attention. All right, provide them with the opportunity. Another thing to make people powerfully literate, make it appealing. So it's not so appealing to just ask a student to go home and read a book with their parents. Okay, they're not just going to want to do that. Maybe we can start off with that in year 8, and it's a good place to start. But as we move on, they develop these skills. They can start discussing the book with their parents, and then when we're sort of talking about in year 12, how I suggested with choosing an article from the paper, having a bit of a debate. We're talking about a contemporary model of reading that's really going to stimulate our students and just appeal to their senses a little bit more. So if you can stimulate a learner by appealing to common tools as well, they're actually going to be more proficient at it. Studies have indicated this. They're more likely to have a desire to learn and be stimulated by the information. Now, how many of you have started thinking about marking that you've got to do, all right? Or what you're having for dinner tonight? Now, folks, I guarantee this is exactly what our students go through on a daily basis within most of our lessons we teach. We've got their attention for a few minutes, and then bam, they're just out of there thinking about what they're doing on the weekend.